not exactly one for ice baths, at least not in an off-season. Honestly, I think I got pretty decent additional results. I could have just dieted harder. That would have worked as well. But, I have my earlier dieting phase is like recording everything. In my mind, it's like, okay, what can I do to really just maximize my morning cardio fat burning routine, right? Fasted cardio, no extra glycogen running around. I got to really deplenish my own stores, and then, whatever kind of lipolysis, whatever. So it was fasted cardio, caffeinated, which I still do, partially for just the energy of it, but also because it, kind of has this sort of, I forget the exact kind of effect, but the gist is, you're kind of extra, I don't know, I forget the exact phrases. And then I'm like, okay, well, I did my cardio. How else can I burn extra calories? Well, how do you burn the most calories? Well, by heating yourself up. So in my mind, that makes sense for me to say, okay, 15-minute ice bath after cardio, because then I'm going to have to burn enough energy, internally to get myself back up to that regular temperature. And that's what we're most efficient at anyway. If you were to calculate the human body, or the human body's ability to, output heat rather than like real energy, or, like that video where a guy is a world champion cyclist and he's pedaling trying to charge or power a toaster, and he like barely hits the toast to be kind of toasted. It's just kind of funky like that, right? But that was my logic, cardio, ice bath, let my body warm itself up. Seemed to work all right. The tricky part is, though, that ice baths are hard. But I think coming into this off season and once I start dieting down, I'm going to try implementing that a little bit more as well. Because for me, I just kind of feel better when I do that. It's a certain, once you're done with it, and kind of like this hard-headed, like, okay, I know this is hard, and I know not a lot of people would be willing to even do this at all. So then if you do it, it makes you feel kind of cool. But right now in an off season, trying to gain size, an ice bath or cold exposure in general is very stressful, right? You're kind of like constricting your blood vessels, just putting yourself into this sort of conservative state. Not something I'd want to do after an awesome lift. But speaking of legs, speaking of awesome lifts, yesterday finished legs, and I can still feel them today. I'm talking like a lot. So that's making me that's making me feel good. Just because, I had a good back day, a good arm day like 2 days ago, whatever, but I can't feel that I had that good lift. Legs kind of stick with you, right? It's like this, a little bit of a badge of honor that only you know about. But plan for today with chest. Get as big of a chest pump as possible and stimulate as much muscle growth in the process as I can manage. So I'll see what happens when I warm up. I can tell yesterday my left rotator cuff was feeling a little tender. I'm not talking like destroyed, but every so often I'll get that. So I think if that's the case, as I start warming up, it's probably not going to be an awesome move to try to do insanely crazy heavy pressing. So that may make today a little bit more, kind of squeezing, controlled, sort of focused kind of approach. But either way, within, I'd say, probably 40 minutes of set number 1, I'm fairly confident, actually I'm very confident, that I will be fully pumped. And once I can get a good kind of lighting space to see how I'm looking, we can actually see, just see how pumped up I'll manage to be able to get. But let's get started. There we go. A couple hooligans sneaked in. I'm not going to cut off their lift. I'll let them get a chest pump. Nah, I'm just kidding. But all right. Squeezing flies first. Actually, more like squeezing presses. Flies are... That's not the right term. All right. Yeah. 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 Two. Two. Okay. 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 A few more. God damn it. Okay, now they're both balanced. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. Two. Yeah. Two. Yeah. Two. Okay. Oh, yeah. A few more of those. Oh. Yeah. Two. Ah. Okay. All right, this should be pointed at the right spot. But same shit. I'm just gonna burn these out. A little more of a chill chest day, just because I, want to go a little easier weight-wise. Two. Okay. Oh, one more. Keeping it simple today, that's for sure. Okay. Okay. Holy crap. Okay, actually one more of those. That felt better than I thought. Certainly not the most versatile lift, but the pump will speak for itself, let me tell you. But I'll probably change it up. I don't know. Let me just get this one done first. I can't really tell what I want to do next until what's right in front of me is over, right? If you kind of catch my drift. All right. Okay. Okay. Let's change it up. Let's do something else. Similar but different. Same setup, but inverted. So, I really like this combo. Depending on the busyness of your gym, you might not be able to throw this in. Usually, if I ever, this is kind of a tough one.
Yeah, it depends on how busy your gym is, because you're taking a bench and 2 cables, and you can't really work in because then somebody's gonna have to move it up. This is where I'm spoiled in here. But yeah, same logic as before, but there's not gonna be any cross action. This will just be squeezing, holding, and with anything cable press related, I'm kind of a little bit of an exception to the rule with those crossbody ones I was doing, because it's just kind of a different feel because I'm almost pushing downward. But anything like really pushing upward, cable, if I have my hands turned in, like, more like a regular barbell grip, it kind of just cues me to get some front delt and kind of hunch action. So for me, and I'm not saying that's like you can't isolate your chest, but it's much easier for me to really focus on pulling my shoulders back and keeping my palms turned up. So instead of like pressing with my my index finger, my thumb inward, I'm almost putting all the force through the bottom of my hand like this. And it just lets me get more chest than shoulder. And that's what I want. I don't need any more shoulder activation. All right. Okay. Okay, yeah, let's post down. Ooh, not as crazy as, 4 sets of the 150s. Well, let's just see how pumped we're looking before we start judging the lift. Yeah, there we go. So, chill, squeezing, nothing wild, no 4-plate freaking, Smith bench or anything like that. And I'm okay with that. That's something that's taken a little bit for me to get the gist of, because in my mind it used to be, if I'm not benching as heavy as I can bench for my heavier working sets, this lift was off. But, now I think I get a little bit more the gist of the value of just, making sure that I'm clocking lifts that sort of, sway and go in and out in terms of their overall, like heft and just damage in a sense. Because, I'd like to think that bring it, crazy sets, crazy everything, go home, eat your food, and you're good. But, when it comes to your shoulders, your elbows, your tendons, you can mess stuff up pretty quick with the mentality of, I don't care that it hurts, right? But I've been saying that for a while, but now I think, you can know a rule or you can learn a rule, very different situations. It's like when you were a kid and you figured out that the cigarette lighter in the, in that like 120 volt little car thing actually does get hot and you shouldn't touch it. You can hear it, but once you burn yourself, that's when you start to, really get the gist. Oh my goodness. All right, yeah. Chest pumped? Let's go home. Yeah, that was solid. And that was a good, I didn't even text Mark that he was going to be there. A little bit of
nice surprise. So that's good. We definitely gotta start kind of coordinating our lifts to be actually at the same time. I don't oh, about to sneeze. I don't know about you, but I mean, at least for me with legs, like if I'm going to be like heavy squatting or anything like that, I end up liking sometimes going to more public gyms, just because, you know, it's kind of easier to get amped up when you know if somebody's watching you. And not necessarily because it's like, you know, well, obviously you feel cool if you're squatting a bunch of weight and people are watching, but it's also this little bit of like an extra added pressure where it's like, okay, you know, don't leave anything in the tank, because, you know, in a way there's kind of an audience. So that's one benefit of the gyms that you're going to actually do have a pretty consistent, I guess clientele would be the right word, but kind of populace, because I mean, people notice. You know, you might take it for granted, or you might not necessarily think it, but if one dude suddenly stops showing up at your gym, maybe that first week you wouldn't think of anything, right? But if you saw him again months later and he showed back up, you'd say, "Oh, what the heck happened? Where'd that guy go?" You know. So it's one sort of just, extracurricular isn't exactly the right word, but you know, it's this kind of subtle sort of camaraderie in a way if you go to the gym consistently, and I'm talking like years consistently, because then you start to, you know, see who's in the same place as you, still trying to grind. You know, I've seen guys where I mean, the only thing I can really remember them doing consistently from when I started working out to now is they just sit on the same elliptical machine for like, you know, 30, 45 minutes, roll, and I can tell this guy is easily 100 pounds lighter than he was the first time that I remember seeing him. You know, so you've got this place in this sort of bigger picture of adding to, you know, even though it may be a little bit more of an unspoken community at your gyms, just by coming in and bringing it. You know, it's like parallel play. You don't all have to be doing the exact same thing, or, you know, kind of go back and forth and, you know, ask everybody about everything they're doing. But it's just the fact that they're there. It's this kind of comforting feeling, you know, to know that they're doing the same thing you are. And take it one step further, odds are they're probably going through all sorts of whatever, and they're still there, right? So the way I look at that is, you know, I've always kind of had this kind of thought process of, if somebody else can do it, it's feasible. Maybe not like, you know, if I watch somebody dunk, that doesn't exactly make me think, okay, I could dunk. But with, you know, things within reason, you know, it's like, yeah, shit. If somebody else managed it, it must not be that hard. I got it, right? The last thing I want to do is start kind of having any sort of like self-doubt, or just like, I don't know if I can, I don't know if I should hit this, I don't know if I can stick to all this cardio, I don't know if I can, you know, keep counting every, like, that's not a thought I even want to have, you know. And that was really motivating for me during this last prep, or I say last, my first real kind of bodybuilding prep, because I knew that, you know, there was this kind of, I mean, pretty much a small group, you know, within at least the classic physique division that I'd be competing in, where it's like, what, maybe, I think in the Arnold Amateur and the Vegas show, probably what, maybe 50 guys total across the board in my kind of division. So that whole time I was dotting down, you know, I definitely had this vision of, okay, all these guys are coming here to do the exact same thing that I'm doing, and they're not slacking off, right? They're kind of bringing it. So it's almost this kind of thought of like, maybe not overestimating, but, you know, just kind of setting this bar that, you know, people are bringing it, and if you want to be like them, then you've got to bring it too. And it doesn't have to be, you know, hitting a crazy ass, you know, 3-plate bench, or, you know, anything else just like that as like a one flashy, you know, kind of component of your routine or your journey. Most of the time, the things that turn people off to, you know, kind of slowing down and, I mean, really just giving up, it's the boring stuff. You know, it's the stuff that you might not even really care about, but it just starts to eat away at these guys, because they're like, oh, it's such a chore to count my calories. And then that kind of just looseness just kind of scales
to everything else. Oh, I don't really want to eat, this big ass bowl of chicken and rice today, or I've got a bowl of ground beef and rice in the fridge. I don't. Dude, I'm tired. I do not want to do my cardio. And it's those little things that you might think are inconsequential to skip, or aren't going to play that big of a role in the big picture, but those are the things that are going to cut down the quality of your lifts. And if your lifts stop being fun, if you stop enjoying yourself in the gym and enjoying like just the act of bringing it and pushing yourself, what are the odds you're going to keep doing it, right? I mean, honestly, there is no force. No one's like telling you every day you have to get up to go to the gym. It's a rule, it's a law, you have to go get it. There's nothing like that. It's kind of a self-accountability thing. So for me, it's I'm looking at it twofold. One, I want to be able to handle it. I don't care if it's tough, I'm still going to bring it. But a little bit more of an objective sense, I want to have fun while I'm doing it, so that I keep doing it and I get to keep enjoying it. So if anything gets in the way of that, or if I start to, if my diet slacks off, or if I wasn't doing my cardio and I'm like, just my recovery's off, and then my workouts aren't as good, like I don't want to even put myself in a position to compromise, the routine that's leading to everything else that I get to reap the benefits of, because, I know that it's a direct cause, and it's tricky to see. It's tricky to see that, like, you didn't really track all your meals today, or, I mean, shit, how many of you guys even really do your cardio? I'm not dogging on you. It's not like this is a personal call out or anything, but I just know it doesn't get done, and whatever. That's not my routine, but I'm just saying, it's like, I know how I feel when I end up skipping my cardio. I've done it before. I mean, I'm talking like months during a bulk, slacking on the cardio, just sleeping in a little more, trying to get more rest, and it's not as fun. It's not as enjoyable, right? The lifts suffer, and it's kind of the fact that I kind of went through the process of understanding that myself, that I get the gist. So my value system on those kind of smaller detail things probably is at least a little bit higher than the average lifter. But if you look at the guy at your gym, or the whoever who is like, that guy's serious, I'm not talking he's 300 pounds, it could just be like a regular ass 190 pound dude who's like pretty diced and experienced. Like, you'd point him out in the crowd and say, that guy knows what he's doing. I would not be surprised if they would have a similar value system on more of the details, right? Macros, cardio, recovery, hydration, like those things build up and kind of act as your support system, so that your lift and your results can really get propelled forward. If I didn't look at my diet, cardio, make sure I drank enough water every day, if I didn't do any of that over the course of this whole time I've been working out, I would definitely not be even close to as developed as I've managed to get, because it just plays such kind of a strong role, I feel. So that's why I'm always so kind of passionate about bringing up the calories and the cardio, just because I know it's got a very strong effect, and it takes a while to show up, but I'm sure that you'll see it if you actually kind of lock it in. I'm always scanning the Instagram stories. Like, if you tag me and you got like that 30 minutes of cardio on the machine or on the treadmill or whatever, I see those, because not a lot of people tag me on the stories. I see those all the time. I'm talking like there might be 10 a day, and when I see them, I know these guys are getting after it. But plan now, get some food in my system, and get ready for bed. Well, later. It's not exactly bedtime yet. I laid out in the sun yesterday, and I can tell I'm a little pink. This is the first time I've gotten any real UV like this whole summer. Sunscreenless, at least. Yeah, gotta ease myself in a little bit slower. But I think I'm tired of being totally pale. So I'm gonna catch a couple more rays while the sun's still shining. And I'll see if we're back tomorrow.